Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ascot and Hats. Join us as we interview Brett Klika and hear about his story from Olympic trainer to executive coach. Brett uses his expertise in the mind and body connection to help executives and Olympians achieve the best versions of themselves. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Ascot and Hats.
Did you drink everything already?
No, I'm sipping it.
Can you focus on your pitch?
I'm trying to,
All right.
but now I'm taking another sip.
I'm going pour again.
All right.
But anyway, so those of you who have been following the show might notice, and those who have not, well, we've taken a little change of scenery here. We're now at the University Club, and if you recall, myself, Lem, and Mike actually all met here together. This is where the idea originated.
Probably.
So they have so graciously decided to help sponsor us here, provide us a room in some area.
Why are you talking about the club?
Because they're sponsoring us
Nah,
to shoot here.
Billies do.
Of course it is. Always is. Just comes knocking on the door when you least expect it.
Looking for a credit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They already gave it to you, homie.
But yes, so here we are. We're in one of their wine rooms, a beautiful location, surrounded by some very nice bottles.
What is this room called?
This is just the wine room. That's actually what it's labeled on the brass plaque outside.
Seriously?
That is.
Yeah,
That's
wine room.
explicitly
Did you know
what
that,
it's
Lem?
called.
No.
But
course you did.
without further ado, I'm going to pass it off over to Lem here to introduce our guest for this evening.
All right. So
Lem, don't
do I
mess
have
it
to
up.
look into the camera?
Don't mess it up.
All right. So we have a wonderful guest here by the name of Brett Klika. He is an executive coach.
Why are you looking at the camera?
He is the author. Oh my God.
Are you looking at your notes?
Yeah, I'm looking at my notes. Yeah. I forgot my glasses. He is the author of 7 Minutes to Fit. And by the way, it is also a Amazon bestseller. You could take some notes with your illiterate ass. All right. It's a bestseller.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's a bestseller. Amazon bestseller. I told you, man, I know how to bring in the peeps.
I don't listen to you.
Shh. And he's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Newsweek, and the New York Times. So,
Can I ask the first question?
no, let's welcome my guy, Brett Klika. Now, I have to say this one thing.
Go ahead.
He really is a great executive coach.
Okay.
Because I was dealing with some bullshit a few months ago.
Really?
And really, he is the first person that popped in my head, called him up, shared with him what was going on. I was like, look, dude, I can't afford like your whole program. I just need 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And in 5 minutes, Brett was like, boom, boom, boom. I took a deep breath. I was like, bro, I'm good. So he is the real deal. So we want to welcome you, man.
Thank you,
Thanks for
guys. I'm
coming.
glad to be here.
Thank you. Can I ask my question now?
Yes. I'm glad we got
So,
given.
I hate to say this word, given your eloquent description of Brett's accolades, Brett, why did you agree to be here?
I don't know if agree.
Be
I just
honest
ended
now.
up here.
Be
I ended
honest.
up here.
I
ended
told him you're
up
coming.
He mentioned it. So I spoke for this business group we're in, and then I just get a text later that day. Hey, you need to be on our podcast. I was like, yeah. So when are we going to be there on Tuesday? Shit.
You know what? That sounds 100% like him in writing. Doesn't tell you anything.
No, I was like, be
that's
there on Tuesday. And then till today, I was like, so tell me about this podcast I'm going to be on.
No, you're a good guy, because I would have told him no.
No, you would have.
I would have told you no. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, I'm excited.
This guy over here speaks very highly of you, as he kind of mentioned already before. So tell us a little bit about, and I'm going to be honest, when he told me life coach, my head kind of went like, for real?
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. Why? So what?
Yes,
You know what? I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked.
Let's go, baby.
This is what we want here. Cheers to that one. Yeah.
I'm glad you asked. Truth. Life is a very, very, I think, subjective experience.
Mm-hmm.
And each individual's journey requires that very subjective approach. Mm-hmm. And to take whatever success an individual has, that typically is the precursor to them feeling that they can provide guidance and advice. My experience has been oftentimes square peg in a round hole. So then they come at it with compensation, with enthusiasm, to get you excited about square peg in a round hole, to generate revenue for themselves, which is a recipe for me to call bullshit. Because you're not going to sell me on enthusiasm, because I'm a person who needs to see empirical data to justify said plan. And oftentimes, and we've been fortunate because we've been sitting here and the crew's been working so hard that we've had a chance to chat.
Yep.
And you're not like that. I'll tell you right off.
Well,
you're not like that.
To your point. So I couldn't agree more with the whole thing with they're selling it. And in what I do, essentially, it's if you look at pro athletes, if you look at high performers, and that's who I've worked with. Like if you look at truly the highest performers, I was a coach at the U.S. Olympic Training Center in San Diego. And they would come in, they would resident there. So I lived there with them. And in order to be part of the residency program, you were supposed to have you couldn't just go there because your organization was paying for you to be there. So USA Track or whatever it was.
What year was this, Brett?
This is 2000. So right before Sydney Olympics. And so they'd be down there and everyone had a coach they were accountable to. But sometimes, particularly in track, so many moving pieces because there's so many different events, there would be someone who'd part with a coach and then they wouldn't quite link up with another one. And then they'd realize, oh shit, like, if I don't have a coach, I can kind of practice when I want. They're still dead serious. It's not like they're partying or anything, but they just figured like, I've been doing this shit for a long time. I don't have to. And man, I'll tell you, they died as soon as they didn't have a coach. Because the thing with a coach is the third party. Third party perspective is really important. But to your point about the whole enthusiasm thing. So I see that world and hey, if it works, if anything works and it doesn't hurt you and it makes your life better, it's good. So if someone's found a cheerleader that it's made their life way better and they actually are evaluating the compensation and it's creating value, knock yourself out. But what I've seen is that what ends up happening with a lot of coaches and things, they're essentially a drug dealer. And their drug is that enthusiasm, is in the endorphins that they get from that enthusiasm. So my first couple, I've had some clients that thought they were hiring that. And then they found out right away they weren't.
That there was work.
Because, well, there was work, but to your point about being more data-driven and being more, so when I coach, my approach, just like we were with the Olympic athletes, it is data-driven. So I take on the idea of, okay, a third-party perspective on these successful people is really important because a lot of the really successful people, we know this, they're surrounded by ass kissers. They're surrounded by yes men. They're surrounded by people saying, hey, you do it better than me, so you just keep doing it. And they are, in the general picture, they're doing better than the average guy, but they don't want to be just better than the average guy. They want to be up here.
Right.
And so when I can come in and use my experience, what I've learned, and objectively identify, hey, this is what it's going to take to get better, and then objectively assess it throughout the whole process, for me, I need that. For me to feel fulfilled and happy, I need to see the path. I need to see that it's working, and I need to see that feedback. If they're just feeling good because I'm giving them high fives and telling them how special they are, it is helping them. I don't feel good, so I don't do it. I'm not selling drugs. I'm helping amplify what they want out of their life, their career. And really, it's the relationship of that life and career. So truthfully, I'm a coach. I 100% agree with you on that because it is a drug.
Yeah.
And they would just want to feel good about doing nothing.
Yeah.
And doing nothing is what's making them feel
sometimes
like
not even
shit.
doing nothing. It's they have an obviously bad plan. What they're focusing on to execute and do, and forget about even measuring sometimes. It's all to stimulate those endorphins
100%.
to make them feel like I woke up this morning, I got dressed, I went out. It's like, and I'm just gonna say it. Like how we hand out trophies for fucking everything today, right? It's like
10th place.
Yeah.
Participation.
I'm gonna reward you for breathing today.
Yeah.
When I grew up, because my old ass, that's not how it worked. When you failed, it wasn't like they were. Even though there was a lot of that back then, where they kind of beat the shit out of you, not physically, but just kind of saying like, step up, you're failing, all that other stuff. Which I'm not a huge, like my own kids, I didn't do that. It's very, I really tried to build their self-esteem and their character because it was that they leaned on to give them the gas tank to do all the work that had to be done, right? But they just want to be rewarded for just showing up. And as long as, like you said, high-fiving them all the time, they'll keep paying for it to just get that high.
It's a drug. They want a drug, and it
just
becomes.
want a high.
it becomes sort of this output without emphasis on outcome.
Yeah.
And so it's just get caught up in the good, and hey, good feelings. I mean, shit, in the world we live in today, if you can feel good about yourself, that's a win. That's just not the route that I've chose to take. Now, I encourage my clients, and my clients do feel good about their progress.
Sure.
But it's because, you said like with your kids, they learn confidence and they learn, but I'm willing to bet that they learn that from doing it, and they got a lot of failures, and they learn that a failure doesn't mean you're done, so they develop confidence because they did fail, but they came back, so they saw that whole process, and that's the process that I want to reinforce. I do think that the sort of constant high-five encouragement can be a bit toxic. I heard that term toxic positivity, and I'm not big on like the cool terms these days.
Copy.
But toxic positivity made a lot of sense to me. Being a person who really thrives on positivity and drives positivity, I think that if it's not authentic or if it's just done in a way that's almost like, it's almost patronizing somebody.
Yeah, you were talking about those relationships that you have to build with these clients.
Yeah.
Like you had discussed how a lot of them come in and just expecting that enthusiasm, that drug. So how do you sort of like establish that with the client, saying, no, this isn't the direction we're going to head. We're going to actually set these empirical, basically marks that we're going to hit to make sure that you're actually going to achieve your end goal.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people that kind of scares them. It's like, well, I have to hit checkpoints or to get there. It's like I just want to end up there at some point.
I just want you to be my daily affirmation.
Exactly. Yeah. I just want you to tell me I'm doing good.
And that's the whole thing. And so it's a great question, because that is legitimately an adjustment for a lot of them. Because a lot of the people I've worked with, I'm not the first coach they've worked with. They're successful people they brought. And so when they see our relationship, and this, I am not some hard ass that like goes in and just like some like just every
like,
day,
you know, you're
what
full
did
of
you
shit.
do? Yeah, like
Marine Corps drill sergeant the entire
but
time. Knife hand.
It's empathy and compassion, all those different things. But it is driven about, hey, I'm assuming you're paying this money because you've hit an end point. You can't take the way things are going, and they must be different. That's my assumption coming into the relationship. So if they continue with what they did before, that's unacceptable. Not to me, but for them. They're paying me money to say, I can't steer this ship. I need someone it's a very vulnerable position they're in. And I respect that. But they're saying, hey, I can't steer the ship. So if I come on and say, oh no, you're steering fine, good job. Just a little, what's going on? How is that not toxic? If they're saying, I'm toxic, I'm hiring you so I'm not going to be toxic anymore. But if I support what they're doing, how is that not toxic? Regardless of what I'm positive or negative with them, if it reinforces the process that they were willing and really desperate to pay money or come to the point where they're admitting vulnerability, I'm not helping them if I help reinforce what they're currently doing.
Yeah, so to me, it only reads like snake oil salesman.
Yes.
You're rolling in on the wagon, and you're pulling out bottles, and there's a placebo effect.
The elixir of life.
You're just drinking it back, and all of a sudden, you're attributing whatever positive thing happens to the fact that you drank the elixir, right?
1,000%.
And it's bullshit. And then that guy or girl is just raking them for cash. And I see so many people who are not qualified who decide to be life coaches running around like that. So they're going to hate us on life coaches.
so here's a hard thing. Here's a hard pill to swallow, though. So if we're all here, we want to help people. If this conversation today can help people, or if in our own lives we can help people, we want to help people. So, cheers to that.
Cheers.
Salute to that. There we go. Salute.
That's
hey, so does it, because there's people that will shit on what I do because I don't have a PhD. There's a whole room of PhDs right now.
I don't have a problem with that.
Like this guy's out there, he doesn't even have a PhD. So if a cheerleader is making someone's life comparatively way better, and they are exchanging currency for that, economy is you're exchanging, hopefully, currency for services that you value. Is that wrong?
No.
That's a hard pill to swallow, because I look at something and say, that's bullshit, that person's snake oil. But if the people are responding...
Well, the results matter.
Yeah, the result, like...
It speaks for itself.
I kind of, it hurts my pride. I don't personally believe, I think you should have all these, but you gotta, in the fitness world, I came from the fitness world, and there's a big push. Everyone should have this certification.
Right.
And the government should be involved because they should force you to do this. But man, there is almost, I can tell you this, there is almost, after being very successful in that industry, the correlation between the number of certifications you have and the level of degree you have and your amount of impact on someone's life is almost inverse.
Yeah.
I would say it's not related.
no,
but
I
almost
think
inverse.
it is inverse.
Going back to your little analogy, although I flip it and say it's the round peg through the square hole, because you're fitting them all through the same exact hole. They're all getting the same certification. But does it make them any different?
It's fair.
Yeah.
It's fair. I think it works. I think it works in duality, absolutely. But so I'm with you 100% on the PhD thing, because at the end of the day, I mean, I know a few PhDs, and they're not necessarily creating
smart.
results for anybody.
I come from the engineering world, and I've worked with plenty of PhD holders, and sometimes their methodology is questionable because it is so much based on a textbook that may not even be relevant to today's society.
But thank God. But then again, it's like it's walking that, because then it's like, because we can, and I think in the world of entrepreneurship, the world of helping people, we've seen results without that. So of course we're going to shit on it and say, hey, you don't need that. I get a lot of base of my information. I'm glad someone's sitting in a lab reading textbooks and getting this shit, so I can take it and disseminate it. So I think everyone has a role somewhere in the world of helping people. I think you just have to decide, where do you feel good in that process? What is your approach? Who are the people you feel you can help? And really, what's going to give you the greatest level of meaning and purpose? If I literally just got people fired up and we gave high fives and that's where it ended, I would want to jump out of a window. I couldn't go to bed.
So what is your process if you're taking on a new client? What are the 3 to 5 things you're asking them? What results do you need to see within a 6 weeks time frame? Compared to the one that's like, oh yeah, you got it, you could do it, blah blah blah.
So when they come in, it's the first step. I mean, it's an interview, and it's really to qualify to say, is this worth both of our time?
Right.
I'm going to lay it on the table here, and just ask him, why are you with me today? What do you want out of this? And if they're ambiguous, well, I just wanted to, I just want to be better. I want to, we're programmed kind of for generality. We're not programmed to be like this specific. So, and I understand that, and so I'll kind of I'll probe a little bit, like, okay, but what's specific? If they can't be specific, and if they are not clear as to what they need, I can't really help them, because the next part of the process, if they come on, it's a very involved assessment process. Because to your point about data, okay, if you want to improve, what does that mean? Like, where are you today? Where are you from a health biological standpoint? Where are you from a psychological standpoint? Where are you from an operational standpoint? And I can't get that from someone saying, yeah, I'm like pretty healthy and like I'm pretty productive. And I want,
they wouldn't be there.
And so they wouldn't. Well, but here's the thing. We're all full of shit. We all have stories. Our stories can't be trusted. Not because we're liars. It's because we're natural. As humans, we're these natural narrators. So we have a reason in our mind. Like, for everything we did well, it's because I'm such a hard worker and all this. The stuff that we don't do well, it's because I'm from, wherever.
It's based on perception.
It's perception. My family was not good at this. Or we come up with these, we can call them excuses, but they're stories.
Yes.
Everything we say and believe is going to go through the lens of that story. So if we're just sitting there in a room, I'm like, okay, so tell me what, they're going to come, it's going to go through their story. So I want brass tacks. So we're getting blood work. We're getting everything from a biological standpoint.
Wow.
I'm doing peer interviews. I'm interviewing the people they work with, people in their home, people in their community, people in their, so I'm doing a complete interview with them to get this third party. Then they're doing some self-assessments. Then we're doing some productivity, daily things that's graphing based on how they're using their time and energy. So we go through this, it's about 10 days. So then I get this, so they say what they want, but then we're sitting down and I give them they get a PowerPoint on them. Now, this Bob Smith, this is your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm telling you right now, if you got to interview my family, you fired.
This
ain't working out, homie.
So many people.
If he hires you, please interview me.
See? How come they don't call me back? You got to speak to Mike. Get the hell out of here.
But it is, families and people just be like, And they're being because I'm listening. Like, you need to list somebody who's going to be honest too, a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, so by the time we get to that first sit down, everything is objective. Yeah. I'm saying, okay, looking objectively, this is what. If you say you're struggling with your family, this is what your family is saying. We have scores of engagement, scores of all these different things. This is your scores. This is, they take a picture of everything they eat. It all goes on one slide. So they're looking at it and they're just like, oh shit, like I thought I ate pretty good. And they're seeing like, whiskey for breakfast. And
knows them better than they know themselves.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't fire. It's just, so I think that the people that come to you are motivated for answers because all the resources that they had just wasn't giving it to them.
1,000%.
So they either got a referral or they read your book or when you're speaking it or what have you. And it spoke to them. Yeah. So they thought, you know what? I'm going to imagine that you don't cost $5 an hour. Yeah. So given that it probably is a fair investment, these are people who have accomplished something. Yep. Socioeconomically, right?
Absolutely.
We're not just talking money because people can accomplish a lot of things outside of money. Yeah. But socioeconomically, they've accomplished something. They're either an executive, an entrepreneur, an athlete, whatever. So what they're looking for isn't probably to pay the bills or find a way to have that steak every now and again. Yeah. They're looking for something that's fulfilling on a vision that they might have to go to wherever that is, right? Yeah. And they have the means to invest in something. They've read a bunch of books, listened to a bunch of tapes, tapes, I sound old. Listen to a bunch of downloads. Right. Listen to a bunch of downloads or whatever.
Silver wire.
So when you come to them with this analyzation, I mean, that's no different than me, taking a company that I have and hiring a business consultant. He's going to do a thorough business analysis of all of, exactly. Instead of analyzing a business, you're analyzing the person and their businesses and the impact
the interaction.
The interaction, the relationship,
biology,
right? But what I hear though, which I think is interesting, is, and we were chatting about this a little bit before we started the show, about, that I did a little bit of training long time ago. Don't you say shit. I did a little bit of training long ass time ago. And,
long time ago in a galaxy far, far away.
From both of y'all. Anyway, so I remember that, it was such a huge thing about mind body, right? About the relationship between your substrate body and how it's almost like an application running in an operating system, right? The app's not going to function properly in the wrong operating system. Well, your body's your operating system. Yep. So any app that you throw into your brain and try and execute isn't going to function properly if you got bugs all over the place in your operating system. Yep. So I think that people that are coming to you are doing that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So, but I'm curious because your background is so much in health and fitness, and you came from that, I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, that really kind of is your substrate. That's your baseline, for how you attack everything that's going on with that person, right? And we can get all into the biology of neurotransmitters and how the body reacts to the brain sending signals and all that stuff, right? Yeah. But I find it interesting that your first love was just optimizing the body for professional athletes. Yeah. And there's such a huge connection, I think, and that's why it speaks to me right now. Yeah. Is that there's such a huge connection between the principles. I mean, we just watched the Olympics. I mean, how fucking impressive was that? Yeah. That is watching.
They are machines.
That is watching.
Live with those people, man.
That is watching.
It's insane.
Optimal human performance. Yeah. Like beyond anything you can almost imagine. So to give you perspective,
and this blew me away when I was living with them, is like, okay, so if you're at in your hometown, you got that athlete. That's like the stud and stud out of your hometown. Right. It's like, wow. And they may or may not be good enough to go on and play Division I, like college. Right. So let's say they're good enough to go and play Division I college. They're one of the best people in the United States, big, and so they go and play. So at the college, are they All-American? Are they one of the best? So let's say they make All-American. They're the best in the college at that. Well, then now they got to get out of college and still be one of the best in America
Right.
to get a chance. So understand.
It's a great filter.
Think of think of the best athlete you know, and realize they're not shit. You know what I'm saying? Like
Compared to these.
Well, you watch the NFL. And you look at these crazy, fast, like Tyreek Hill, I think was just saying he could beat Noah.
Noah Lau?
Yeah, no way in hell that's going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Like and I'd venture to say, I mean, maybe on a route for sure, but in 100, no chance in hell.
Noah Lau will take off like a bat out of hell.
Yeah, but like the levels to the game is unbelievable.
I mean, you look at somebody like Simone Biles.
It's the levels to the
it's
game.
almost like superhuman.
She's like a jigsaw puzzle, man, the way she...
It's
No,
crazy.
they literally had to change the scoring
Mm-hmm.
to accommodate the complexity that she could just execute like that.
Just like,
But you know better than we do the kind of mental
That's
posture an athlete like that. I mean, case in point, Tokyo. Was it Tokyo? Yeah, it was Tokyo that she bowed out.
Yeah.
Because of the depression and
because
the
she
mental,
needed, had the presence of mind and self to know I'm not in the right headspace.
Well, she had a weird. And it's a phenomenon. They get it in baseball called the yips, and they get it in the yips in baseball, and it's also in golf. And it's this weird mental tick that you can get where in baseball, and I got it in high school. It's very weird. You get this mental hang up. Catchers get it, and so they just throw it back to the pitcher 100 times a game. Well, all of a sudden something happens to their psyche, and they overthink it.
And you forget how to do it.
So they can't get the ball to the pitcher, so it bounces before it gets
Professional.
to them. Professional. Full on, I mean, all-stars. They get it in golf when they go to putt. They overthink it, and they get the yips. And
Or
so they
slide
hit it
or
the right
hook or
time.
whatever,
The wrong.
yeah.
So she had in gymnastics, it's called the twisties. And it's like in snowboarding, they have that too, where it's you do all these things in the air. Well, if you overthink, you have to just go, and it has to be kinesthetic. You have to feel it and muscle memory. The second you try to do it consciously, you're screwed. And they will get these, Shaun White had it for a bit, like these things where he just,
couldn't do
it's the yips. They go up and they think about it too much. Well, she got that. It's very legitimate. We knew about all the event, there's all these little things. It's very legitimate. And people were, so much criticism.
Yeah.
And I probably, had I not worked at that level, I probably would have been like, come on. Yeah, this is what you train for.
Right.
But it's legit and anyone can get it. And the complexity of what she did, especially on her vault, she could literally break her neck. Like it's likely she would break her neck.
You can't even figure out where her head is at when she's
exactly.
spinning around like that in the air.
And so it's like she knew, and everything in her being didn't want that to happen, but it did.
Yeah. I like what you said about that overthinking piece because I was watching the men's final in the Olympics for the gold. And I mean, Steph Curry, basketball. And basketball. And myself and Brendan, we were just sitting there, and Steph Curry hit 4 threes in the last 2-3 minutes of the fourth quarter. And he's just like, boom.
Yeah.
Boom. And as you said, not even thinking about it. Boom, boom. And he doesn't have the mouthpiece. It's just hanging out of his mouth. He's like, boom. And then all the guys go, boom, night. Like, this game's over, baby. I mean, it's just so natural for them. So I can only imagine when they're going through those mental challenges, how it will affect their game.
Oh, 100%. And that's how they go into, the mental piece. Well, even my story, how I got into all of this. I was an overweight kid.
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I wanted to take it.
So it's like,
we're like
ties
watching.
in. It ties in.
Please.
So it's like I was this overweight kid, and
you were fat like me?
I was.
Be honest.
I was a big boy. I didn't have the beard.
Well, I hope not. How old were you?
Where's this kid come from?
He was born with that beard.
Kind of was.
So like I was an overweight kid, and it was like sort of like my family, great family, but it wasn't like the type of where like. You just kind of accept. You just, this is where we live. This is what we do. This is where we're at in life. This is how much money we make. Just, it's fine. It's cool. Just do your thing.
This is your thing.
But my parents, in particular my mom, was like, well, hey, I knew it bothered her because I didn't like being overweight. So she's like, hey, I'm gonna give you $1 towards Nikes. I wanted Nikes, and they just bought me like the bullshit shoes. Like, and I wanted like the Nikes.
Sears or something. My mother did that shit.
Yeah, I know. So I was like, so she's like, I'll give you $1 for every lap you run over at the school towards a pair of Nikes. So I got into running, and then pretty soon I kind of liked it. And so I ran myself to the first pair of my Nikes. I got the Air Max, probably been like 88s or whatever it was. I got those. And then all of a sudden I could run better. And all of a sudden I was actually running pretty good. And all of a sudden I got a little bit of growth. And then that running started to peel off the pounds. I wasn't gaining weight and I was growing taller. Well, so it changed everything. Like all of a sudden I could talk to girls and but even at that young age, I was like, okay, I changed physically. Now I can go play sports. I was varsity teams and all that. But my perspective on life completely changed because of that physical thing. This thing that I can help myself do, I realized I could literally decide, like if I was bad at something, I could get good at it.
Yeah.
And that blew me away. So I went to college. I majored in exercise science because that, it changed my life. But my senior year, I was like, I need more psychology. Like if I'm going to work with people, it's the mind. And here, this is a college kid. I'm partying all this, but I was like, I had to stay another quarter to get my minor in psych. But I was like, I got to. Like it's mind, body. Well, so then I go into my first thing right out of college was that it was the Olympic Training Center. It was an internship. Then I got to actually be a coach with canoe and kayak. So then I went into personal training. But about 2010, I enjoyed personal training. I won international awards and it did really well, speaking all around the world. But there was just, it wasn't the whole picture because it was largely the body. Even though it was the mind body, it wasn't. So I met Dr. Jim Lair, The Power of Full Engagement, best-selling author, all this. And he had started working with big companies, particularly Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, ExxonMobil.
So he was already a speaker.
He was already a speaker, but he had this content he had developed with Dr. Jack Groppel. And first they started with athletes. And then some of the business people that had seen him create this success with tennis players were like, those principles work in business too. So they started working with, business was like, way more money, way more scalable, way more everything. So they had started doing that and it really took off. So I met him in 2011 and I started working with him. So now I come from this background of all athletes like he had to now we're working with corporate executives and it's mostly that there was this piece of it that was like your physical being, your biology drives your psychology. So we did work on that and that's where the book came out of 7 Minutes to Fit. But it was this mental piece I got to dig into.
Yeah.
So it's so cool to work at the elites in sports and then add the elites in the business world about 2010, 2011 and marry those two worlds. And finally I was like, yes, this is the model of how you get people that you make their lives better. And that's what was so fulfilling. And I found my calling. I found my purpose. And to this day, my belief is, I call it the bio base. I don't care. You can say, I want to improve my communication skills. I want to improve my emotional intelligence. If your biology ain't happening, if we do the assessment and your biology sucks, we're going to be going so uphill to get the rest of the stuff in. It's not worth the energy. Let's get your biology in check. Then we can work the other stuff in with no headwind. And so that's really the whole biology piece sets me apart from a lot of people that are doing what I do.
So when did the inspiration come to, start turning that into a format for speeches and then, of course, writing your books? I know you've published a few of them now.
Yeah, it just came like, it was after doing both of them and realizing that the marriage of the two was the ticket. This is how people could truly overhaul their life because they feed each other. Like
the symbiotic relationship of mind and body.
It just goes back and forth. So it was probably about 2000. I mean, honestly, around the time my daughter was born when I was like, this is my life. This is what I'm going to live by. This is what I'm living by these certain principles. I'm living by these principles. I want to share these principles. And I had been doing it with the Human Performance Institute, but I was like, man, which is amazing. Dr. Lair created this unbelievable content, but I also wanted something from me, and so I was doing my own stuff too, and that's really my Energy 100 company now. That's what it is.
You have been surrounded by elite athletes. You've been surrounded by very integral mentors and things like that. And so therefore you've been able to go on a very, very successful trajectory. What do you say to people that have your mindset, have your determination, but they keep surrounding themselves by people that are kind of like holding them back, kind of cornering them, you know?
Yeah.
Because,
I mean, your family, friends, those relationships.
because you got me going back 20 years.
Why
like,
you gotta talk about his family?
Because I'll be honest,
You're on camera.
I've read that book.
You read that book? Oh, I made my way out, bro.
Yeah, it's a hard one to go through.
You know, you took me back 20 years, and then I think about other people that have your mindset, and I believe I kind of share your mindset as well. So what do you say to those people that are stuck between the rock and the frustrated place?
Careful,
Man.
we might not be able to afford his
I
answer.
know. So, will you hire me?
Pull out your wallet, y'all.
I brought cash.
Well, so I think, and I share this as an integral part of my message when I'm talking to young people. You got to get off, and you're not. If you're surrounded by people and they're just not the right people, you're not really on an island. What some people do is they've realized that maybe the people they grew up with or whatever it is that they're not the people that are going to take them to the next level. So they sequester themselves.
Yeah.
And they isolate themselves. And they kind of alienate
Which is just as dangerous.
It's just as dangerous. Like all of a sudden now, well, yeah, you've kind of cut some of the negative, but you're not adding the positive.
Now you have no influence.
Yeah, so you have no influence, and so you're just on this island, and those people go insane because
Or they just go back.
or they go back because they're trying. They have the ambition, the drive, and the vision, but it's like having an awesome car with no fuel.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you got like a McLaren, and you're out. There's no fuel. There's nothing to fire it up. So if I think if someone finds themselves in that situation, you have to have the humility, and I have done this wrong. This is not a strength of mine. I've had to learn this the hard way.
I'm glad you're saying that, man.
Have the humility to find a mentor, and you need to just straight up, sometimes you got to be like, will you be my mentor? You find someone who is going where you want to go. And you will be surprised. It's so daunting. I mean, you're asking so much. Like, it seems like, will you be my mentor? That's asking a lot.
Yeah.
It is.
You say, will you adopt me? I mean, that's not a short order.
And it also requires a lot of humility.
A ton, because you're
lot of
saying,
humility.
hey, I admire you. What I'm doing, I know I got the drive, I got that confidence, but what I'm doing isn't working. Will you be my mentor? And sometimes you don't have to come out and say that because it's a natural relationship. But I'm telling people, hey, you go and just straight ask, and you'll be blown away.
Yeah.
Because people who are successful, very few have gotten that by just stepping on people.
100%.
Most people have gotten to a place, most people you admire have gotten there. Most, there's assholes in the world, but they are actually a lot fewer than people would like to think.
Yeah.
But if you ask someone who is where you want to go, odds are they got there. They understand the struggle. And to them, it's almost like for them to help you.
Yes.
I know when people have asked me, I'm like, man, if I can mentor you, yes, it's going to take time. Yes, it's I'm providing
you get a
you
lot out of
service,
it.
but you get so much out of it. So if you know, to answer your question, if someone is finding themselves in a situation where they're surrounded by shit and they can't, you know, it was Joseph Campbell said a lion surrounded by lambs will lose their roar.
Wow.
And it's 100%.
It's true.
Yeah.
So you find that person that's got the roar, and you get rid of all your ego. You have some humility and just say, show me.
Yeah.
Do you think, you got something?
Well, I was just going to
ahead.
discuss a little bit about that, of finding that mentor, because a lot of times a lot of the successful folks I have met and interacted with, friends and family.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, yourself is good. Yeah, feel free to.
Hey, I kept a straight face for a fair thing.
You did, right? He's like, he's so kind to me.
But a lot of them who have, you know, essentially made it to a lot of people, what they always look back on is like, well, they want to give something back. Because, of course, you know, their friends and family are always like, oh, you know, you got a nice boat, you know, you got a nice house, you got all this stuff. And so they're always asking them for material things. Yeah. And those who have kind of come over to me and discuss it, like, what they lack is that sort of fulfillment of giving it back somehow in a non-monetary value, because they want to see it grow continuously.
Yes.
And money only goes so far unless you can instill that upon someone. It's the legacy they're establishing.
Legacy. And to that point, a lot of the people that come to me actually are very successful. And that is because they're like, well, yes, everyone wants to make more money, but they're like, I'm going to eat either way. You know, I got the boat, I got the whatever.
Agreed.
Yep.
But what they don't have, they feel, is legacy. They're like, okay, I made this money, and they didn't do it in a lascivious way. It wasn't bad, but they're like, but what is my legacy? Just a dope car and a big house, and so it allows
So funny
them.
you say that. Yeah.
It allows them in a way that they can see. They're not just writing a check to an organization hoping for the best. They're literally looking to the eyes of someone and shaping their future. And I've had the opportunity to do that. And I mean, on my worst days, anything I've been through, like it's not my bank account that gets me through my worst days. It's that sense of service and legacy and the fact that whether I'm here or not, I've created something.
It's a positive
for the world.
impact that you're creating.
Yep.
So I'm gonna be negative here. It's not unusual.
Right. We were waiting.
Now he's going to
Do
phrase
you think sometimes? Let me put it better this way. I think sometimes people innately have that drive to want to go to another level, next chapter, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
It's just not there.
Yeah.
And you can give them. Someone can pay you to help them. It still won't happen.
1,000%, and that happens all the time.
What's
So
that
do you think?
satisfaction that we were talking?
Hang on a second, real quick. Do you think there is a percentage of the population that can't be helped? I mean, I'm asking you a huge question. But I mean, I'm just, I'm throwing this out here.
Yeah.
So, like,
Curious.
I'm not asking you for the answer like you have the answer. I'm asking for a dialogue because I think that there is a percentage that just, and I'm not talking about the guy or the lady who lives within their means and they are perfectly happy with what, you know what? Have at it. I'm good to go. I got leave you alone. You're good.
Yep.
You don't want anything else. You're perfectly happy with what you have.
And there's something to be said.
I'm
Sometimes
talking
I'm like,
about the ones that bitch and complain.
yeah.
That how come you get to drive the McLaren and I got to drive the beat up, Yugo. Right?
Yugo.
Right?
I said
That's
Yugo.
the car he chooses.
But
Those are
If
hilarious.
we're picking levels,
let's pick
down
that
here.
Now I'm pretty sure Brett has an answer. I just want to throw this. I read this today. I'm not sure. They accredited Samuel L. Jackson with this quote, and it says,
Which one are you going with?
No, no, I'm not going with motherfucker.
I'm like,
because that's what we're all thinking.
So no, the quote is, if you want to pay for something, if you want to buy something without looking at the price, then you need to work without looking at the clock.
Ooh,
And I thought that was powerful.
Yeah.
Say it again.
If you want to buy something without looking at the price, then you need to work without looking at the clock.
I like
Damn.
that a lot.
Yeah.
Samuel.
Yeah. So they gave him the
Oh, we
credit
finished
for
with
it.
Motherfucker.
Motherfucker.
I was
You should have got it, by the way.
Yeah, fuck. So, but kind of to your
yeah.
point, you bitching and complaining, but you're looking at, all right, it's 5:00, and I'm not working past this time. And so when I was working for Guideposts on the East Coast, I would travel extensively. Like my wife would never see me on the weekends. That's how much I travel. And I came back with all these brand new volunteers that needed to be trained. And we had someone, and I said, so-and-so, I need you to make these calls. He said, well, I did, but they're not home until after 5:00. I said, well, call them after 5:00. He said, I get off at 4:30. I said, you lazy sack of shit. I said, I'm out here busting my ass. You got other folks that's working overtime, but you telling me you get off at 4:30, but you got an attitude. This is at that time when I had a brand new Charger. But Len, you got a Charger. Yeah, bitch, because I'm not looking at the clock. I'm working.
So I can think of many chapters. I look at my life as chapters in a book. Some of the chapters, I'm glad I moved on.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Don't even want to reread them.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like,
burn
I'm
the
good.
book.
I get it.
Yeah.
I needed that chapter to get to the chapters after.
100%.
Yes.
So I respect
Yeah.
its merit for what it is, but don't make me read that again.
Yeah.
I don't need to go through that again.
But
But let me finish the thought. So in many of those chapters in my youth, I remember doing things that had absolutely no measurable value other than the fact that I felt compelled and I felt reward in the journey towards something. Because I didn't know where I was going, I knew I had to be fucking moving.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it was I mean, so I can tell stories like crazy of shit that like everybody's looking at me like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
Yeah.
You got no dollars to assign to that. You got no recognition to assign to that. But I can tell you in every fucking instance, it was a precursor to something else. Had I not fucking done that with my eyes closed, not looking at the clock, that door never would have fucking opened.
That's right.
So you did that though because something compelled you that was important to you, and you didn't.
Yes.
When you were young, you didn't know how to articulate what that was.
Yeah.
You couldn't. There was something, and I was the same thing. Like I had my senior year in high school. I lettered in 4 sports because I learned that wasn't because that was more. It was to protect myself against myself. You know, it was like I learned that with free time.
That's good.
Like if I just had free time, I needed to direct my energy.
Because it would otherwise it would go somewhere.
So when you got that engine, and some people, like I had friends who were just happy that they'd play 1 sport a year and they'd go home after school and they'd kick it. And they didn't get into drugs or anything. They just were happy chilling.
They were good. That was their journey.
I wasn't programmed that way. And so it was a lot of stuff that like now I look back, I'm like, that's an inefficient use of time. That wasn't going anywhere. It wasn't making money. It wasn't, but it was something. But what happens is when you got that engine and then finally you put that engine, because then if bad stuff's put in front of you, it's like, well, shit, I'll do the bad stuff. I got an engine. I'm just going to do the bad stuff. Well, but then you find something that it's rewarding financially, fulfillment standpoint. It brings meaning. And you have that engine, you can point it in that direction. All the things in your life, the people, the situations, the environment, a certain degree of luck has put you in that place where you can do that. That's where you truly create success. So your question is, well, can you help everybody? The question would be, what is help? Because I think that a lot of people are just happy where they're at. Yeah. But if someone's like bitching because you have something because they didn't do something.
Or they want to be there. They want to be somewhere that they're not.
Yeah, they want to be somewhere they're not. But I think that there's some people that incapacity is a reality of life. And to me, it's a sad reality of life. But some people have a vision, but they don't have the capacity for, maybe it's intelligence. They don't have the capacity for pain tolerance. They don't have the capacity for a delayed gratification. And we sit here and have this conversation from a standpoint, who's going to help those people? Well, you know, there's people that look at us and say, these dudes just live in a normal house. They don't even have a house in Italy.
It's very true.
They probably didn't fly a helicopter to this thing today.
Absolutely.
And they're like, can you help those people? Like, well, part of me is like, I don't really want that. That's not a big part of what drives me.
It's not a priority.
Yeah, but then also I'm straight up not willing to sacrifice what Elon Musk has sacrificed to get where he's not. I'm just straight up not.
Sleeps in a cot in his factory.
I'm just straight up not willing to do that. So if Elon Musk's like, well, how do I help Brett?
Can't.
Well, if my why in life, if my purpose, if I can't go to sleep, if I can't carry on day to day without pursuing becoming Elon Musk, well, then I need his help. But if I find my way, but the problem is if I'm bitching about Elon Musk every day, but I want to be him, I'm bitching about the fact I'm not him, but I'm not willing to do it.
Yes.
Those people is not so much helping them. It's just helping them objectively see what the situation is. You know, and hopefully, and sometimes it's just there's going to be unhappy people, and there's certain. I do believe that there's an environment, the environment they grew up in, the people, their parents, the people they're around. I hate it. Luck is part of. You have to acknowledge the role of luck.
It's a
luck
variable
is
in the
when
equation.
opportunity meets preparation, or when preparation meets opportunity. That's what luck is. But you got to have some degree of luck.
Right.
And there's people that just never get it. They're prepared. They're going, and it's the randomness of the universe. Shitty stuff happens.
It happens
to everybody.
Entropy.
So
it's true.
I'll ask you a quick question. So how does your mom feel about your success now that she challenged you with that dollar around the track?
Why you gotta talk about his mom?
Mom is the reason why he looked like this.
So I think she's she's part of the story, and I think that it's health has always been important to her. She knows that, that my family's part of the story. And I think it's a sense of pride and all that, because it's, no upbringing is perfect, and we had our ups and downs, but I think that aspect of it and what's driven me, I think it's, I think if something I impart in my daughter when she's young, if that shows up as part of her life story that allows her to serve others,
That's
I think
purpose.
it'll bring me a lot of...
That's purpose.
I love that.
I have a question. We change gears a little bit. We chatted about it a little bit before we started the show. One of the reasons that I was a little bit apprehensive about you coming on the show
A little bit.
was the whole...
He's mincing his words.
Let's say it's kind of
So good looking.
not off
My man David Hasselhoff, baby.
I love it. All right, Brett's a friend.
Yeah, there you go. Got the vibe.
I hate it when you do good things.
I know.
It really makes me
Pains
angry.
you.
Wait, is
No,
he
it's
give a compliment?
angry.
Yeah.
I'm like angry.
You know how well I'm going to sleep tonight knowing that I was right and he was wrong?
So
Like
angry.
a fucking baby.
So angry.
Say.
So one of the reasons, ironically, that I had an issue with the whole life coach, snake oil salesman deal, where you come in with all this positive energy and whatnot, presumably unfounded. You genuinely, authentically have that positive energy, but you were kind enough to share that you had an experience in your life that you lost your wife. And I appreciate you even being willing to talk about it. But I shared with you that I, on a prior small show that I had done, had a buddy of mine who had lost his wife to cancer, and I had him on the show, and that was really profound to me. To sit across the table, and Lem, you've probably had a lot more experience with this than I have. And Jacob, you've had some experience with it, obviously. Where it is, it's perspective on life, right? It really does. It really boils it down to what matters.
Oh.
It gets rid of all the ancillary shit.
Yep.
It's all gone. If you don't mind sharing, because I think this is very powerful to people that are listening to the show, how do you keep the focus, keep the energy? I have 3 daughters, so I can only imagine. I have 3 daughters and 3 stepchildren that I love beyond measure, and that's my purpose, right? And my wife. So I imagine your daughter is a huge component or variable in that equation. But having lost your wife, how do you, and I think understand fairly recently, how do you stay the course with something like that, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. So since the year 2000, I've been working with high performers, helping them with tools to find meaning and purpose and all these things in life. And in 2022, coming off the heels of, I'm going around speaking, I actually was, the morning that my wife passed, I was working on content to go speak for this organization, and she was going golfing. She came in, said that she was going golfing. She went golfing with some friends, and I get a call about an hour and a half later saying that she had collapsed. And she had a heart episode, and she had no diagnosed or symptomatic heart disease.
Ever before that?
Nothing. And they weren't able to revive her. So in 24 hours, I went from, my role, my purpose, my why in life was this, to live extraordinary by helping others do the same. That's a purpose. And my wife and I we discussed what that means behind it. So the scariest thing I've ever experienced in my life was when my wife passed, my why disappeared. And our purpose, whether it be our family, whether it be our career, or it's usually, for most people, if they're honest, it's a mix. It's where they all come together. My service to this world, my value to the world, my connection to the world, all those different things. And when that disappears, I can honestly say it's the scariest thing I've ever experienced.
It's scaring the crap out of me when you're just saying
it. It's all of a sudden, I'm out in space without a safety line. And it was absolutely terrifying. And because my concept of even like a basic career, you know, I was flying around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I'm like, I'm a single father now. My career can't go on the way it did.
Yeah.
And to go through that period where it was, I'm listlessly just existing with, I didn't want to be here.
Yeah.
Why would I want it? The life that my why, my purpose, my reason for getting out of bed, my reason for everything was based on this model, and that model just got nuked.
Taken away almost.
Yeah.
Nuked, exploded overnight. And so in having done what I've done for so long, there was a certain level of training that had happened, of thought process, of everything. It had been trained. I'd gone through these thought processes thousands of times trying to help other people with purpose.
Yeah, it's going back to basic training.
Basic training,
yeah.
100%. Well, I'll tell a story later if you remind me about, I did some stuff with the Navy SEALs and seeing that, but like out the importance of training. But, and so I realized I finally one day I was like, I need a reason to get out of bed because I don't want to be alive, and that's not okay. I need to be alive. I need to be here. And so I sat down and I just started to write down, like, essentially, why do I need to be alive?
Wow.
And what I came up with is not so much, and you know, we all will say, what's the important thing in my life? My family's my purpose. Well, I want to encourage everybody to take it a next step as to what about your family?
Yeah.
What about your kids? Because it's too many people say, oh, it's my wife, my family's my purpose. Well, I hate to say it, but those things can go away. And so if I just said, well, my wife's my purpose, she's gone. So I realized that, okay, the one thing that I could wrap my mind around in this pit of hell was, regardless of what I'm going through, I know the future I want for my daughter. I'm not okay with the future that would come from me not being able to be the dad.
Yeah.
Present.
I do not. I knew I wasn't okay with the future of, I'm starting drinking or anything like that. So that literally was sort of the first like step of, okay, I have a reason to get out of bed.
Right.
I do not. It's not okay with me for her to feel unsupported, for her to feel like there's no.
It's not an option.
That is what got me out of bed, because you look at, like, my purpose is for my family and I to live extraordinary by helping others do the same. Again, a nuke hit that. It was exploded. Like, I couldn't, helping others do the same, how the hell am I going to do that? Like, when I can't
because
do what I've done.
you're your priority first and foremost.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you are stably minded, it's very difficult to go out and help others and create that.
100%. So I that is what initially, and it's not like, oh, well, now I'm motivated and I feel great again. It's just that was one foot in front of the other. That's why I have to take care of myself. That's why, because I want her to see that. And so that awareness helped me build a little bit of momentum. And then when I got that little bit of momentum, I was like, okay, well, what are my best practices? What have I done? What have I trained people to do? What is it within my life that's a best practice that allows me to show up in a way that I'm proud? And for everyone, that's a little different. For some people, it's like, well, I know when I have a spiritual connection, when I go to church, maybe it's when I work out, maybe it's when I read every day, maybe it's when I go fishing, or maybe it's when I'm in nature, whatever it is. And it's important that everybody knows what that is, because in these times where you're floating or you've hit a wall, it's important to be like, okay, am I doing my best practices? And
they're your groundings to
99% of the
reality.
time, when people hit an impasse, they're not.
I'm not sure if this is going to be, I don't know, traumatizing or whatever, but I'm going to throw it out there. Could you take us back to that moment after the phone call? Like, I know when I received an email about a loved one passing, I had to literally get up, stand up, and start speaking to a crowd of people. Email came through.
Right before?
Seconds. Looked at the email, closed my iPad, stood up, and started speaking.
Like you talked about compartmentalization.
And so,
that's where that comes
I mean, you have this young, beautiful daughter at home. Those first, I'm not going to go too far, those first 5 days, like, how did you maneuver that? How did you help your daughter through that, because I could only imagine the bond that was suddenly broken between her and her mother.
Yeah. So I was at the emergency room, and the doctor came in. I was with a couple of my wife's coworkers who had been with her, and the doctor came in and had me sit down, and he told me this: your wife's no longer with us. And here's the thing with emotion. I wish that when they said that I was sad. I wish that when they said that, I was bewildered. I wish that when he said that, but your brain and body don't know what it's too much.
Too much.
Yes.
It's an overload.
Yes.
They don't know what to do.
It's almost like you short circuit.
Yeah.
And so in that void, though, I wanted sad. I was
Yeah.
like, God, just give me sadness.
Yeah.
Give me something.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that. I didn't get it. And so you're in this void. I mean, you're living in that void is got to be what a version of hell.
Yeah.
Because the void is being like, okay, my purpose is exploded. My future, my existence, my worth in this earth, it just was exploded. And now I don't even have the humanity. I don't have access to the humanity that would let me process this. So I went, I left from there and I went home, and the only thing on my mind that kept me from just running into the woods was like, I have to tell my daughter.
Yeah.
Because as much of a nightmare as that is, there was a value within me. And I always say that when you're, they say when you hit rock bottom, you actually hit rock foundation. And I think about what happened to me is, if you've ever been to see the Constitution in Washington, D.C., there's an apparatus around the Constitution, is that wherever we're at war or anything like that, it goes down a cylinder that's like 150 feet under the earth, so that the new, after we get exploded and all this, the new civilization comes along and say, oh, these are the rules of a civilized world.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's what I see my values as. A bomb went off, and there's this little cylinder deep down that had like this short list of values that when everything else goes away, those are what's there. So everyone talks about their values and their purpose. God, I wish I didn't have to do it this way, but I really feel that I've gotten to the base of who I am.
Wow.
And so in that, it was like, hey, my daughter needs to know, and this is not me sitting down. It's like, she needs to know that I'm going to be honest with her. She needs to know to be straightforward. So I was like, I'm going home and I'm telling her. I'm not sugarcoating it. So I told her, her 9-year-old brain couldn't, she cried, but she couldn't process it.
Yeah.
And then, I sat awake all night. My mom was there, and she just knew that, my dad had passed a couple of years before, and I actually got the phone call before I got on stage.
Your dad before you got on stage?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I couldn't, there's no way I could get to him or anything, and it was literally 5 minutes before. But so my brother flew out, so that those first 5 days were, I can't remember it really clearly, because I was in this void, but I will say that the one thing that allowed me, again, it's all about building momentum, and you have to look for these things that build momentum, purpose, but community. I can't say enough about my community. It makes me feel so
That's awesome.
validated and good that I collected over the years. You
Solid
read books on grief, you read books on and all of them say, hey, you're going to lose friends through this process.
Yeah.
There's friends that just, they can't
handle
deal.
it.
Mine was the opposite. My friends, my neighbors, my family that really meant something to me, like the people that were in my inner circle, every single one of them stepped up in a way that I could never pay them back. And whether it be the first day, whether it had been the first day, and finally I was like, after 2 days, I told my mom, I was like, hey, if people want to come by, because it shocked the community, I said, they can come by tonight. And that was a turning point for me. Because it was about day 2 or 3, they came over that night and they were inconsolably sad. They came over crying. They hadn't been to work in 2 days.
Wow.
You didn't feel that as a burden on you?
I didn't. Well, initially I did. Because I was like,
dude, I don't have the energy to help you.
So but here's the thing. So I initially thought I'd feel that way. But when they came over, it made me feel like I wasn't alone. So initially I thought it would be a burden, but they weren't looking for me to feel better. They were looking for like, let's cry together because we loved her together while she was here. And so we honor her with, we're going to cry together.
Yeah.
And
That's
moment,
a testament to your character and hers.
it's a testament just to the people that God's put in our life, and to go through. So those first 5 days, that community piece and the meals and the people coming over. I mean, the community piece, again, it's another thing that saved my life. But it is, and I think it's important for people to realize, yes, we get busy and there's so much shit, with kids sports and all this. Like we lose contact with our community. Like we kind of just don't. It's worth the, one night a month or whatever it is, to make sure you're connecting with the people in your life, because they're there for those good times. But man, the bad times, when you have quality people,
It's like that old adage, it takes a village.
and I lived that.
Yeah.
And a village, I say it saved my life. But yeah, that was the first. And then it was kind of at the end of the first week that I was like, I need a reason to get out of bed, because I didn't want to be here anymore. And I knew that was bad. And that's when it's going to look at, what is my purpose? What is my why? Just for right now. Don't have to think big picture of it. And
just for
that
right now.
build the momentum. And then I started adding my best practices, and it built momentum to.
So your career helped you.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Because I had the tools. And that was the thing, is I had the tools, but I needed the energy and the willingness to use them. And that's when you're in that level of grief, that doesn't come easy either.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Mike, I think we had that time where we should break.
Okay.
Don't lose your thought. And
Okay.
we'll resume with
I'll
your
make a
thought
note.
and get to that.